Imagine walking into one of the toughest military camps in the world, where every face is hardened by discipline and respect is earned through strength and grit. Now imagine being a simple woman, dressed plainly, standing out like a fragile flower among towering oaks. That was Maya's reality. From the moment she stepped onto the base, the soldiers' whispers followed her like shadows. They didn't just doubt her, they mocked her. "What is she doing here?" they sneered. "She doesn't belong in this place." It was a world built on toughness, and Maya seemed miles away from fitting in. But Maya wasn't just any visitor. She was the wife of the camp's most respected general, a man known for his fierce leadership and unshakable loyalty to his troops. Yet, despite her husband's reputation, Maya found herself isolated and underestimated. The soldiers saw only a simple woman, not knowing the strength she carried within. They couldn't imagine what it might take to survive, and maybe even change, a place like this. Tension grew thicker with every passing day. Would Maya crumble under the weight of the mockery, or would something unexpected happen to turn the tables? Just when the hostility seemed unbearable, the ground suddenly shook with the roar of a helicopter overhead. Eyes turned skyward as a familiar figure descended, her husband, the general, arriving in a way no one at the camp could ignore. What would his arrival mean for Maya? Would it protect her, or ignite a storm even bigger than before? Stay with me, because this is only the beginning of a story where courage, respect, and loyalty collide in the most unlikely place. The helicopter's blades cut through the air with the force that made the dust swirl around the camp's dusty grounds. Maya's heart pounded, not from fear, but from a mix of hope and uncertainty. Her husband, General Carter, was known for commanding respect wherever he went, but this time the stakes felt higher. She had spent weeks here, walking a tightrope between silence and confrontation, and now his arrival was about to change everything. The camp itself was no ordinary place. It was a training ground for the toughest soldiers, a place where weakness was a secret no one could afford. Every drill, every challenge, tested not just the body but the mind. Maya had never imagined she'd be caught in the middle of such a harsh world. Her life had been simple, quiet days spent caring for her family, supporting her husband from a distance. But this camp was different. The soldiers didn't see her as a partner or a person. They saw her as an outsider, an intruder. The mocking had been relentless, and the whispers like knives. Some soldiers even dared to question why General Carter's wife was here at all. Behind Maya's calm smile was a quiet determination. She wasn't here to prove anything to the soldiers. She had her own reasons for coming. But those reasons were hers alone, hidden beneath layers of expectation and duty. The camp buzzed with tension, and the arrival of the general only stirred the air thicker. Was he here to protect his wife, or to deliver a message to the troops? Would his presence finally silence the doubt, or would it spark something far more dangerous? As the helicopter landed, the soldiers watched with mixed expressions: curiosity, suspicion, maybe even a bit of fear. Maya stepped forward, her gaze steady, waiting for what would come next. The story wasn't over, not by a long shot. The soldiers' eyes flicked between General Carter and Maya, their silence heavy with questions no one dared to voice. Among them was Sergeant Hayes, a man hardened by years of training and loss, who had never seen the general's wife in this place before. He respected the general, but he didn't trust outsiders, especially not someone who seemed so out of place here. To him, Maya was a symbol of softness in a world that demanded steel. His doubts echoed in the minds of many others, creating an invisible wall between her and the camp. But Maya noticed more than just suspicion. Behind the tough exterior, some soldiers seemed curious, almost confused. Why would the general bring his wife here, to a camp where vulnerability could be fatal? What was her purpose? Maya's own mind wrestled with these questions. She hadn't come just to stand beside her husband. She had a reason, a secret tied to a promise made long ago, one that might shake the very foundation of the camp's unyielding rules. Meanwhile, General Carter moved with purpose, but there was an unfamiliar tension in his eyes. His arrival wasn't just a routine visit. Something urgent had drawn him here. Whispers among the officers hinted at a new threat, a challenge to the camp's authority that no one was ready for. The general's protective stance toward Maya was clear, but so was the weight on his shoulders. His leadership would be tested, not only by external dangers, but by the doubts growing inside his own ranks. Maya's presence was stirring more than just gossip. It was forcing the camp to face a question no one wanted to answer. Could strength come from unexpected places? As the sun dipped low, shadows lengthening across the training grounds, the unspoken conflict deepened. Everyone waited for orders, for answers, for something to break the uneasy silence. But the real storm was still ahead. Night was falling over the camp, and the air felt heavier than before, charged with a tension that made every heartbeat louder. Maya stood beside General Carter, the glow of the setting sun casting long shadows across the rugged terrain. The soldiers gathered around, their faces a mix of skepticism and something harder to read, anticipation. No one knew what the general's sudden arrival meant, but everyone sensed that something was about to change. Sergeant Hayes tightened his jaw, watching the way the general spoke quietly to Maya, their exchange brief but intense. Rumors had spread fast, whispers of a secret mission, a threat creeping closer than anyone wanted to admit. The camp had always been a place of order, where everyone knew their role, but now the rules felt fragile. The divide between Maya and the soldiers seemed wider than ever, yet the general's protective gaze never wavered. Inside, Maya felt a mix of fear and determination. She had come here, not just as a visitor or the general's wife, but as someone carrying a truth that could shift everything. The mockery she had faced had only made her stronger, sharpening a resolve that surprised even herself. She glanced at the soldiers again, some still cold, some watching her with a flicker of respect. Could she break through their walls? Could she prove that strength wasn't just muscle and command, but something deeper? Suddenly, the camp's alarms shattered the silence. Lights flashed and soldiers snapped into action, the tension exploding into chaos. The threat the general had warned about was no longer distant, it was here. Maya gripped the edge of a nearby crate, heart racing as orders flew past her. Would the soldiers see her as a burden or an ally when the moment of truth arrived? The night was closing in fast, and with it, a test that no one in the camp could ignore. The story was reaching its breaking point. Everything was about to change. Just as the soldiers scrambled to their positions, the camp's command center crackled with a sudden, unexpected message. A voice, cold, unfamiliar, and sharp, cut through the chaos. "This is not a drill," it warned. "We have an insider. Someone within your ranks is working against you." The words hit like a thunderclap, freezing the soldiers mid-motion. Eyes darted in every direction, suspicion now turning inward. The threat wasn't just outside the camp, it was inside. General Carter's face tightened. This was worse than anyone had imagined. The loyalty he had built over years was suddenly under siege, and the fragile trust between Maya and the soldiers became even more strained. If there was a traitor here, then every glance, every whispered conversation could be a lie. Sergeant Hayes exchanged a grim look with his team. Knowing this was no ordinary attack, it was a betrayal from within. Maya felt her pulse quicken. The camp's hostility toward her had seemed like the biggest challenge until now. But this twist made everything more dangerous. Could she stand firm when the enemy might be lurking just behind her? Could the general protect the camp, and her, when the real danger was hidden in plain sight? As the soldiers tightened security, the general pulled Maya aside, his voice low but urgent. "There's something you need to know," he said, glancing around as if the walls themselves had ears. "This mission is personal. It's tied to why you're here." Maya's heart raced. The mockery, the doubt, the sudden threat, it all connected in ways no one yet understood. Outside, the camp's perimeter was alive with movement, but inside, the real war had begun, a battle for trust, loyalty, and survival. The next moments would decide everything, and no one could guess how far the storm would reach. The tension inside the camp reached a breaking point as General Carter called everyone to attention. He stood tall, his voice steady but filled with urgency. "We know there's a traitor among us," he said, "and we will find them." The soldiers held their breath, eyes scanning each other, searching for any sign of betrayal. Maya stepped forward, surprising many. "I'm here to help," she said quietly, her voice cutting through the silence. The camp had underestimated her, but now she was ready to prove her strength. Using the knowledge she had quietly gathered, Maya helped the general and his team uncover hidden communications and secret meetings. It turned out the insider was someone no one had suspected, Lieutenant Briggs, a trusted officer who had been feeding information to an enemy faction. When confronted, Briggs tried to flee but was quickly stopped by Sergeant Hayes and the others. The camp breathed a collective sigh of relief, the immediate danger contained. Yet, the victory felt bittersweet. The betrayal had shaken the very foundation of the camp's unity, and the soldiers now saw Maya in a new light, not just as the general's wife, but as a courageous ally who had stood firm when it mattered most. The mockery and doubts faded, replaced by respect and a fragile new trust. But just as the camp began to settle, a new message arrived, this one encrypted and chilling. It wasn't from the enemy outside or the traitor within. It was a warning. This was only the beginning. The screen flickered, revealing a shadowy figure who spoke with a cold smile. "You've won this battle, but the war has just begun." Maya and General Carter exchanged a look. This was far from over. The real fight was just starting, and the camp would never be the same again. The camp slowly returned to its usual rhythm, but the air was different now, heavier, charged with the lessons of recent events. Maya stood beside General Carter, no longer just the simple woman who had been mocked, but someone who had earned a place of respect among the toughest soldiers. The journey had been harder than anyone expected, filled with doubt, danger, and unexpected challenges, but it had also revealed a deeper truth. Strength doesn't always come from muscle or rank. Sometimes it comes from quiet determination and courage. The soldiers who once whispered behind her back now nodded with a new understanding. Sergeant Hayes, once one of her harshest critics, approached Maya one evening and offered a firm handshake, a small but powerful sign of acceptance. The camp's walls, both physical and emotional, had begun to shift. Trust was fragile but rebuilding, and Maya's presence was part of that change. General Carter and Maya shared a quiet moment overlooking the training grounds. "You were stronger than anyone here expected," he said softly. "Not because of what you showed, but because of what you never gave up." Maya smiled, knowing the path ahead wouldn't be easy, but feeling ready for whatever came next. The warning from the shadowy figure still echoed in their minds, a reminder that this victory was only one step in a larger battle. But now, the camp was united in a way it hadn't been before. They were ready to face the challenges ahead together. Maya's story wasn't just about surviving a tough military camp. It was about breaking barriers, changing perceptions, and proving that even the simplest among us can stand strong in the toughest places. And sometimes, the greatest battles are fought not with weapons, but with heart.